I always wanted my mother to smile at me the way she smiled at other people, but she never did. Not once. My name is Nora. I am 26 years old. I grew up in a quiet town in the north. People knew each other, and life moved slowly. But inside our house, it always felt cold. Even in summer. My mother's name was Carol. She was not a kind woman. She had sharp eyes and a sharp voice. She spoke more to the mirror than she ever spoke to me. I lived in that house like a shadow. I was her daughter, but I never felt like I was hers. When I was small, I used to wait by the window. I watched for her to come home. I hoped she would hug me, maybe say, "How was your day, Nora?" But she only walked past me. Sometimes she didn't even look at me. I told myself, maybe she was tired. Maybe she would love me tomorrow. But tomorrow was always the same. My father left when I was 5. I don't remember his voice. Only that one day he was there, and the next day he was gone. After that, my mother became even harder. She didn't cry. She didn't speak about him. She just looked angry all the time. I once asked her, "Why did Dad go?" She stared at me and said, "Because people leave when they're tired." Then she walked away. At school, I was a quiet child. I didn't talk much because I was always thinking about home. Other girls had warm clothes, packed lunches, and smiling parents at school plays. I had an old coat and silence. My teachers asked if everything was okay. I smiled and said yes. I thought if I said the truth, I would be in trouble. Or maybe they wouldn't believe me. When I was 10, I won a small art prize at school. I painted a picture of the sea. It took me many days. The teacher gave me a little medal. I was so happy. I ran home with it in my hand. "Mom, look! I won!" I said. She didn't look up from her phone. She said, "That's nice," and went back to scrolling. That was all. No smile, no hug, just a few empty words. That night I put the medal in a drawer. I never showed her anything again. We never ate together. She cooked for herself and left something cold for me. She didn't ask what I liked. She didn't care if I ate or not. I often sat alone at the table, looking at the food, feeling nothing. I was not hungry for food. I was hungry for love. But I knew I would not get it there. Sometimes she brought men home. They were loud and laughed a lot. She laughed with them too. I watched from the hallway. I thought, she can laugh. She just doesn't laugh with me. One night I asked her, "Can we watch a movie together?" She said, "I'm busy. Go to your room." I never asked again. When I turned 16, I got a part-time job at a small shop. It was not special, but it gave me time away from the house. I met people who smiled at me. Some even asked how I was. I didn't know how to answer at first. I wasn't used to kind words. But slowly, I started to feel something like peace when I was outside. I finished school and started working full-time. I still lived with my mother, but we spoke less and less. Some days, we didn't speak at all. She still looked at me like I was a stranger. One morning, she saw me getting ready and said, "You look tired. Don't make a habit of it." That was her way of saying something, I guess. But it still hurt. I remember one day very clearly. I was 19. I came home early from work. I wanted to tell her I got a small raise. I thought maybe, just maybe, she would be proud. I walked into the kitchen. She was there, having tea with a friend. I smiled and said, "Hi." She looked at me, then looked at her friend and said, "That's Nora, my daughter. She's quiet, always in her own world." They laughed. I stood there, frozen. She didn't say I was smart or good, just quiet, like I was nothing. I went to my room and cried. I cried all night. Years passed. I moved out at 23. I didn't tell her I was moving until the day I packed my things. She sat on the sofa and said, "So you're going, like your father." I said nothing. I just carried my bags and left. She didn't stop me. She didn't even stand up. That was her goodbye. I found a small place near the city. It was quiet and clean. I could hear birds in the morning and cars at night. It was my space. No cold stares. No silence. I still thought about her sometimes. I wondered if she missed me, if she noticed I was gone. But she never called. Not once. Last year, I saw her at the market. She looked older. Her hair was gray now. She didn't see me. I watched her from behind a shelf. She was talking to the man at the counter, smiling, laughing. That same laugh. I felt something sharp inside, but I didn't cry. I just left the store and went home. People say, a mother's love is forever. But that's not true for everyone. Some mothers don't know how to love, or maybe they don't want to. I stopped asking why a long time ago. There is no answer that can make it better. But now, I live my own life. I wake up early, I go to work, and I speak kindly to others. I tell people, good job when they do well. I say thank you when they help me. I don't want to be like her. I don't want anyone to feel small around me. One evening, I met a girl named Erin at work. She was new and she looked nervous. I smiled and helped her learn the tasks. She said, "Thank you for being nice." I said, "Of course." That night, I cried quietly in bed. But it was not a sad cry. It was something else. Maybe healing. Maybe hope. I still carry the silence from my childhood. It lives in the corners of my heart. But I also carry a new voice now. A voice that says, "You are enough," even if she never said it. Before I continue my story, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening from? Sometimes I wonder if someone out there really understands me. Just knowing you're here gives me strength. Erin and I became good friends. She was younger than me, only 21, but she was kind and open. She liked to talk about books, animals, and simple things. She often said, "You have a calm face, Nora." I didn't know what that meant, but I smiled. No one ever said that to me before. We started to have lunch together. Sometimes we walked after work. She liked to feed the ducks at the small lake near our office. One day she asked, "Did you grow up around here?" I said yes. She asked about my family. I told her I didn't speak to my mother anymore. I didn't say why. She didn't ask again. That's what I liked about Erin. She never pushed. She just stayed close. One weekend, she invited me to her house. Her parents lived 20 minutes away in a quiet street with flowers near every door. When we arrived, her mother opened the door and hugged her. Then she looked at me and said, "So this is Nora. I'm happy to meet you." I froze for a second. She smiled at me like I was someone special. It felt strange, but also nice. We had lunch together. Her mother talked and laughed. Her father made jokes. They asked me simple questions. "Where do you work? Do you like the city? How long have you known Erin?" I answered slowly. I was nervous, but they listened. They nodded. They smiled. It was so different from what I knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that family. How easy they were with each other. How light the house felt. I thought about my own childhood home. It always felt heavy, like I couldn't breathe there. Erin's house was full of light. I realized something. It wasn't me. I wasn't too quiet, or too cold, or too strange. I just grew up without love. A few weeks later, Erin's mother sent cookies to the office. She said, "For Nora, too." I held the little bag in my hand for a long time. No one had ever made something for me before. Not like that. That night, I cried again. But it still wasn't the same kind of cry I used to have. It was softer. It was warm. One afternoon, I got a message on my phone. It was from a number I didn't know. The message said, "Hi, it's your mother." I stared at the screen. I didn't answer. She sent another message. "Just wanted to say hello." I put the phone down. 3 days later, another message came. "Do you still live in the city?" That time, I answered. I said, "Yes." She replied, "I want to see you, if you're okay with it." I didn't know what to say. I waited a full day. Then I wrote back, "I don't know. Maybe." I told Erin. She didn't give advice. She just said, "Whatever you decide, I'm here." I liked that. I didn't want someone to tell me what to do. I just wanted someone to stay beside me. A week later, I met my mother at a small cafe. She was already sitting when I got there. She looked older, tired. She didn't smile. I sat down slowly. She said, "You look different." I didn't answer. She looked at her hands. Then she said, "I know I was not a good mother." Still, I didn't speak. She kept talking. She said she felt alone now, that people were not visiting her, that life was boring. She said she thought of me sometimes. I listened. I watched her face. She looked small now, not strong like before. She said, "I'm sorry." It didn't sound big. It didn't sound deep, but it was something. I said, "Why now?" She looked at me and said, "Because I have time now, and I think a lot. I see things I didn't see before. I didn't know what to feel. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I just said, okay." She looked surprised. "That's all?" she asked. I said, "I don't need much from you anymore." We sat there in silence for a long time. Then she said, "Do you want to come visit me sometime?" I looked out the window. The street was busy. People walked by, holding bags, laughing, talking on phones. I said, "Maybe. I don't know." She nodded. "That's fair." When I got home, I felt strange. Not sad. Not happy. Just strange. Like I had opened a door that had been locked for years. I sat by the window and watched the sun go down. The sky turned orange. I thought of my younger self, the girl who waited at the window every day. I wanted to tell her, "You were always good enough." Weeks passed. I didn't message my mother again. She didn't either. That was okay. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel hurt. I just felt free. I finally understood something. Love is not about blood. It's about kindness. It's about care. And I had that now, from friends, from myself. One evening, Erin came over. We cooked pasta and talked about her trip to the coast. She showed me pictures of the sea. I smiled and said, "It looks peaceful." She said, "Next time, you should come." I nodded. Maybe I would. Before she left, she said, "You've changed, Nora." I asked, "How?" She said, "You're lighter now, like you're breathing better." I smiled. She was right. I was learning to breathe again. Sometimes I still think about my mother, about the cold food, the empty words, the long silences. But now, I also think about the small bag of cookies, the smile from Erin's mom, the soft light in that house. And I tell myself, that is love, and you deserve it. Months passed. Life became quiet, but peaceful. I worked, I read, I met Erin for walks. I started to sleep better. I didn't have bad dreams anymore. I didn't wake up with fear in my chest. The silence that used to hurt me now felt calm. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. One morning, I looked at myself in the mirror before work. My hair was tied back. My eyes looked clear. I smiled, just a little. For the first time, I saw a woman I liked. A woman who had been through a lot, but was still standing. I said to myself, "You did well, Nora. You're okay now." That same week, Erin invited me to her cousin's birthday party. At first, I didn't want to go. I didn't like big groups. But she said, "It's small. Just food, music, some laughing. You might enjoy it." I said yes, even though I was nervous. The party was at a little house with a garden in the back. People were sitting on chairs, eating snacks, talking softly. Erin stayed close to me. She introduced me to her cousin, her aunt, a few friends. Everyone was kind. One woman asked if I wanted lemonade. Another offered a blanket when the wind got cold. I sat near the garden and watched the trees move. It felt good to be there. Safe. Warm. I looked around and thought, so this is how people live. This is what it feels like to belong somewhere. Later that night, Erin walked me home. We didn't talk much, but when we got to my door, she turned to me and said, "You looked happy tonight." I smiled. "I was," I said, and I meant it. That night, I didn't think about my mother. I didn't think about the old house, or the cold kitchen, or the days I waited by the window. I thought about soft music, warm lights, and people who wanted me near. But the past has a way of finding you. A few weeks later, I got a call. It was from a hospital. The nurse asked, "Is this Nora Harper?" I said yes. She said, "Your mother was brought in today. She is sick. You are the only contact we have." My hand felt cold. I asked, "What happened?" The nurse said, "She fainted at home. The neighbor found her. We need someone to speak with." I thanked her and said I would come. Then I sat down. My heart was quiet. Not fast, not slow, just quiet. I went to the hospital that evening. She was in a small room with white walls. Her face looked thin. Her hands were still. She was asleep. The doctor told me she had low blood sugar and needed care. He said she would be okay with rest and support. I sat by her bed for a long time. I didn't touch her hand. I didn't cry. I just watched her breathe. Her face looked so different now. Soft. Empty. I remembered her voice, her words, the cold way she used to look at me. And still, I didn't feel hate. I didn't feel much at all. When she woke up, she looked confused. Then she saw me. She blinked a few times. "Nora?" she said. I nodded. "You came." Her voice was low. I said, "Yes." She looked at the ceiling. "I didn't think you would." I didn't answer. She stayed in the hospital for 2 more days. I visited once more. I brought her some socks. I didn't stay long. On the third day, she was sent home. I gave the nurse my phone number in case they needed something again. Then I walked out. That night, I sat by my window again. I looked at the stars. I thought. I showed up. I did what I could. That was enough. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel weak. I just felt done. A few days later, Erin and I walked to the lake again. She told me about her new hobby, baking small pies. I laughed and said, "I won't try them if you burn the crust." She smiled and said, "Deal." Then she looked at me and said, "You've grown so much, Nora." I said, "Have I?" She nodded. "You carry less now. You used to walk like something heavy was always on your back. But now, you walk free." That night, I thought about those words. I remembered the girl I used to be, the one who waited for hugs, who painted pictures no one looked at, who thought love had to be earned. I didn't know then that love should be given freely. I didn't know you could walk away from pain and still be whole. I know that now. Sometimes I still get quiet when someone shows me care. I still look away when people say kind things. But I'm learning. I'm trying. And every day I get a little better. I don't know if I will ever be close to my mother. Maybe I won't. But I made peace with that. Not every story ends with a hug. Some stories end with space, with time, and with a soft goodbye. I don't need her to say sorry again. I don't need her to change. I needed to know I could live without her love. And I did. I made my own life. I found my own peace. And I kept my heart soft. Now, when I see someone sitting alone, I smile. When a friend is quiet, I stay near. I don't walk past people the way she walked past me, because I know how that feels, and I never want to be the reason